What is more fun than getting to hang out with you and play with the new eyeshadow palette? Getting to hang out with you, play with the new eyeshadow palette, and some new brushes. I'm really excited. We are going to be going over the new collection from Sigma with Angela Bright. We obviously have the new eyeshadow palette and the new brushes with the nano fiber brush technology. So these are new bristles. I can't wait to dive in. You know I am a brush geek. We are going to try all of these out. I'll give you my thoughts. I have a lot of brush reviews here on my channel and I can't wait to add this one in. These are beautiful. I'm just going to say right now, I think that these are so beautiful. Now, Sigma again did send these over to me and I do have a discount code that does apply to these. It is KEEPBEAUTYREAL. You can use that if you decide to pick up this collection. I'll go through pricing and everything with you later, but let's get into the fun, shall we? But if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. And here on my channel, I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. All right, I'm gonna put the brushes down for now and we're just gonna take a peek at the inside of the palette. So I have to say, I think that this is a very well-balanced color story. We have some colorful shades, we have some neutrals, we have a mix of duochromes and shimmers in here. We've got a little bit of everything and I can't wait to dive in. I'm gonna do something fun and colorful today. Today is actually Jeremy's birthday. We're going out to dinner tonight, so probably gonna do something a little like dark and smoky for a Thursday morning that hopefully we'll wear into the evening. Okay, I think I'm also going to do swatches of these shadows just so that I can also kind of decide where I want to go with this. I have been talking so much recently about Sigma's eyeshadow quality. I think that they are very underrated. I love all of my Sigma eyeshadow palettes, the ones that I purchased and the ones that have been sent in PR. I honestly haven't had a dud. They just have a really beautiful formula. And so don't skip out on Sigma's palettes if you see a color story that you really want. Now I was looking for the pricing on this palette, by the way, and this right now is on sale for $40. And I do think that my code gives you a discount on top of that, which is really a pretty good deal for all of the shades that you get in here. I also love how slim their palettes are. Like, listen, I don't need some chunky monkey crazy packaging. I just want something that's sturdy enough to protect the shadows and that I can like travel with. So it does come with a box, by the way. And also you've got the look at the shades on the back and it's the same on the box as well. So the palette is $40. So let's take a look at these brushes. Again, these brushes are just so pretty. And these are a resin handle, so they're not like a wood coated, they are a resin handle. I hope you're able to see. It's so funny, I feel like such a like early 2000s YouTuber when I like put my hand up like this, but sometimes it's just what works the best. So you can see it has the brand and Angela's name right there, and I think that because these are more of like a resin rather than like a coated brush, this will last a really long time. And I like that you have this double threaded ferrule. There's nothing worse than buying a brush and having it come loose and wonky. So these feel really nice and secure, and the bristles do feel very soft. Now, just going into the pricing on this set, it is $103 right now on the Sigma site. Again, you can use my code to get a discount. That comes down to about $17 a piece for each of these brushes. And considering that a couple of these brushes are teeny tiny eye brushes, you know, that's definitely, I would say, like a mid to high range price for a synthetic brush. But if these are great quality, like I love my synthetics. I think that they last a long time, they can really take a beating, and these are just so beautiful. But here is the clincher. Right now, the bundle with the eyeshadow palette and the brushes is $115. So if you think you're gonna want the brushes, you can get the palette for like less than 15 bucks. I was kind of shocked when I saw it. I was like, wait, the math is not mathing here. And then of course you can use the discount on top of that. Okay, before we get into the eye look, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Sigma says about these nanofibers because I was really curious. I have enjoyed my Sigma brushes, especially like in the recent years. The ones that I've gotten have been very high quality. They last a long time, and I find that, you know, they can take, like I said, they can take a little bit of a beating if you're using cream shadows or things like that and you need to scrub them a little bit harder. It's one of the things that I love about synthetics. So one of the things about this is they say that it is a luxuriously soft touch that mimics the feel of natural hair. And I have to say, these feel really, really soft. You can especially tell in this base brush, which I didn't use for base today, but I think I'm gonna try to use this as a highlighter brush today. We'll have to see. It's a little bit firm, but these just feel so soft. And I think what's really gonna be telling is using the little pencil brush. This is called a small detail brush because my under eye area has been a little bit sensitive lately, I think just with like allergies and everything, and that's one of those areas that like, if a brush is going to be scratchy, you're going to really feel it there. So we shall see if it's as soft as what they're saying. But then this is supposed to deliver high performance pickup, again, sort of mimicking a natural hair brush. That is one thing that you will usually find out of natural hair, is it just picks up the product more. These of course are cruelty free and vegan since it is a synthetic fiber. One of the things that I find is interesting is that they say that these are less prone to bacterial buildup and that they're easy to clean, making it more hygienic. Now, any brush that is easy to clean is more hygienic, but so I'm not quite sure what they mean there, as in like they're easy to clean, meaning the product is gonna come off the bristle better. If these have like a special antimicrobial technology. So they do say that these ultra-fine synthetic fibers are designed for antimicrobial protection. So there must be some sort of technology here. Obviously though, you still gotta clean your brushes, y'all. So just to go over that. All right, so let's give each of these brushes their close-up, and then we will get right into that tutorial and I'll give you my thoughts. And of course, now the sun has come out from behind the clouds, so I have this lovely little shadow. It'll be fine for this part. I will figure it out. I really wanted some natural light, but I might have to close the window. The issues of lighting. Okay, so let's talk about the AB1. So this again is the base brush. The brand says that you can use this for cream or liquid products around the eye or to prep for eyeshadow. So I mean, you'd have to have a really big, like, you know me, I'm team small brush. So for me to use this to like put on eye base would be a lot, but I do think I could see using this for creams on the cheeks. I think I am gonna try using this for a highlighter. I'm gonna use one of the shades in the palette, I think, depending on what it looks like when we swatch it out, but this does feel really nice. And truly for cream products, I love using synthetics because I really want to just be able to work into that, make sure all that product is out of the brush and then that it's super clean. So 99% of the time I'm reaching for a synthetic when I'm using my cream. So excited to try that one out. So then we have the AB2, and this is the fluffy blender brush. I think what I'll do is maybe at the end of this, if you are curious to see comparisons in sizing to other brushes, if I have the time, I will pop in and just kind of like show you similar shapes just so you have an idea. So then we have the crease brush, and this one is, I think, a pretty standard shape for Sigma. It does kind of remind me of the one that they've been known for years, which I've got over here somewhere, but this is your typical paddle crease brush, which honestly, when I was younger, I mean, I used it because like that's what all the girlies were using, but then I was like, I don't know. I like a fluffier, rounder crease brush. But as I've been getting older, and if I want like a little bit more detail, or, you know, if I'm feeling like extra hoodie that day, sometimes it's nice to be able to have this more paddle shape to get into those areas. So I'm going to be excited to try that one out. This is a fairly firm crease brush though, which has pros and cons to it. So it's not a super fluffy brush, but you could pack in color, which is oftentimes what I like to do, is like pack in the color and then use a different brush to blur it out. Okay, so then we have the shader brush, which is, oh, it slid over to the side here. I prefer a shader that is just a little bit more flat than this. Just for a bit more precision as I'm working into this area, but this is pretty slim and skinny. I think that the nice thing about this is this gives you the option to use it to like pack on, to also kind of like blur that on if you're looking for a softer finish. I think that this would also be good for creams and powders, so really excited to give that one a go. Oh, they also talk about like applying a shadow to the lash line with this, which I think you actually could do. So definitely, I appreciate that most of the brushes in this are small brushes. Team small brush forever, for sure. Speaking of, this is one I'm really excited to have. This is the small blending. So this is just a really nice semi-firm, like it's, you know, it's got like a nice fan of bristles, but it is a fairly firm brush. But the size of it is so tiny that you could really get some detail work. So I could absolutely see laying color down in the crease with this and then coming through and blurring out with this one on the edge. Wow, this feels really soft. It feels really soft. I will say I prefer a blender that's just a bit more soft. Not soft, it is incredibly soft. I prefer a blender that is less like packed, because I'm 43, y'all. Like, this skin likes to move quite a bit, and the more firm it is, maybe you'll be able to see that. Please come look at my loose skin move around. The things I do for you guys. Okay, so you can see how that starts to like move that skin, and that can lead to like skipping of shadow sometimes. So I'm gonna be curious to see how this one does. I like something that's really tiny like this, but has this type of loose pack to it. RIP, I don't think they're making it anymore, but this is the one. This is the E36, and this is the one that I prefer. So you can see how this is like much more loosely packed. So there's really not a lot of movement in these brushes. I might be wrong. We'll just have to see. But Sigma, could you please bring me back this one? I don't think that they make it anymore. You guys know I've talked about that one for a long time. Okay, so finally we have this one, which I love, a good tiny, tiny small detail brush. This one is pretty teensy weensy, and you could use this, you know, like inner corner. You could use it right along the lash line, of course. I mean, you could use this as a lip brush. This would actually make a really good lip brush. Okay, so that's the brushes at first glance. Let's go ahead and put on some eyeshadow. All right, so as promised, I'm gonna swatch these out for you before we apply. I think what I'm going to do is swatch out all the shimmers, show you those together, and then swatch out all the mattes. I just like to kind of see those side by side to see the variations that we have, maybe how combinations are gonna work, but also it just helps you see the colors laid out in a different way. And I think that sometimes our brains, like, we look at a set of shades and we're like, okay, how am I going to use that? And sometimes just being able to rotate those and mix them up a little bit can really help. So maybe being able to see them laid out in a different way will really tell you if it's a color story that would work for you or not. If there are like gaps or things that you maybe wouldn't use, or you're like, wow, I never thought about using those in that way. Hopefully that'll help. So I'm going to get to swatching in my arms. Also, as I'm going through here and swatching, if you're new to my channel, I really believe in a very realistic swatch. I don't lay them on thick. I lay them on with dry fingers, not a bunch of primer on my arm or anything like that. I just think, not that swatches always show how things are going to perform, but they certainly won't show how they're going to perform if someone like packs them on to make this like super sexy swatch, which I have to say I've not only seen creators do, which is fine if it's more for the aesthetic, but brands do that because it just looks cuter in pictures, right? So I just like to do like a really real swatch. Okay, so we're gonna do these last few. Ooh, this one's pretty. So I usually just do like a couple, you know, like a light swirl with my finger, and then like maybe 2 passes over my arm, just in case you're new to the sitch here. Oh gosh, okay, we've got a couple really pretty shades in here. So I'm gonna show you these shimmers, and again, I'm just doing this with, you know, a dry finger and dry skin. So I'm sure we can amp these up on the eye if wanted. All right, so we have our first set, and these are the shimmers right here. So I'm trying to get like a little angle there so you can see the finish of these. They are very pretty. One concern that I have out of one of the shades here is this one right here. That is the Hollywood shade. So it's almost like an old gold. Hopefully you're able to see that as like the lighting keeps going in and out, but it is very dry feeling and it didn't really want to pick up. So that means that if you really like, I was pretty excited for this one. Like that's this one here. But if you want, and I haven't used it yet, obviously, but if you're wanting to be able to use this and get like an intensified look, you're really going to have to use a brush that will pick that up well. Hopefully one of these would do that. And I think use it wet or use it over a glitter glue because it's pretty, it's just pretty dry. So it's not quite as creamy as what I like to see in a shadow like this, but that doesn't mean that the performance isn't going to be good. I do think that the creamiest shade in here is this one, Autumn, which I think is the one that Angela is wearing in the promo photos. It's gorgeous. This is like a me shade that, of course, right away, like the 2 shades that I was like, ooh, right away was Faye, this green shade, and then of course Autumn, because you know that that's just the way that I roll. Bright is this first shade, and it's more of that classic satiny shimmer. I think that's the one that I was thinking about using as a highlight because I think it would really lend itself to that because it's not overly textured. It's a very thin feel. This shade here, Champagne Problems, is so pretty. That is like a Very reflective, gorgeous champagne shade. It does have tiny, tiny little micro flecks of like a silver sparkle to it. Very pretty. And the purple 2015 looks pretty, but it's also, again, not quite as like shiny. But sometimes once you get those on the eye, they look quite shiny. So those are the shimmers. Now let's go ahead and do the mattes. All right, the mattes. So let me just say that, first of all of these feel very, very nice. Oh, my bracelet is upstaging the first shade. We do have a shade here that really like kind of like blends right into my skin. That is the shade Basic. It really is just like a beautiful, just straight down the middle, like neutral shade. Then we have PDX, and so far so good with the shade. It didn't go on patchy or anything like that. You know, shades like this can be kind of hard. We have the shade Peachy. I like it. I wish it was just a little bit less of a pinky peach and more of a warmer toned peach. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of that little light. Ah, the light's doing me dirty in here. And then Schmugala, which is a beautiful warm toned brown, but not like overly warm, just a little bit, which I think lends itself well to Evermore. This beautiful like autumnal orange. It's an orange, but a little bit earthy, so I really like that. Zinfandel, this is one that it swatched pretty well. I could see it possibly getting a little bit patchy on the eye, just in the way that it didn't swipe on patchy, but there was just something in the way that it felt as it went on that I was like, danger. Like I don't know. I just got that vibe. We'll have to see. I'll probably use it today just to see. And then Bear, which is another light tone, which could be really pretty as like just a inner corner, a brow bone highlight, something like that. And then Cold Brew, which is this shade here, and it's a really pretty shade. It's almost like a taupey purple based brown. So I really think that you have a good mix of warm and cool tones in here. The only thing being that I do wish that this shade Peachy was a little bit more of like a true warm toned peach, as opposed to this is like a little bit more of like a cool toned peach. If you use like Sydney Gray shades, you know how a lot of their peaches, they just have a little bit of pink in them like all the time. It's kind of like that. So that would be the only tweak that I would probably make so far. But other than that, I think this is a great little collection. And it's so interesting because when I see these two sets together, I see summer looks, I see fall looks. Like I see this being a pretty evergreen palette as far as like, you know, what you're going to be able to use it for. Of course, wear the makeup you want and in whatever season. But like right away, I was like, ooh, I could see doing this combo in fall, and like right now doing this for summer. So I'm going to try to like mix this up and use a few of these shades as we get into this eye look. So I'm really excited. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. I'm excited. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention, I will have the details on everything else that I'm wearing down in the description box, as well as links to all of these things. But I did put on a few of my Sigma favorites today because I was like, yeah, let's just do it. So I'm really liking how this all came out. So I'm really hoping that we can avoid a lot of fallout. So my original thought was going through with Faye. That was like the only thing. I was like, I really just kind of want to wear this green. And I might pair it with this, not only because I think this could be like a fun combo, but because I'd like to sort of test out the shade just to see how it goes. So that's kind of where my vibe is, as much as I kind of want to like try out that Hollywood shade for you. We'll see if we can work it into this look, but it might be more than than what I'm going for today. So I am actually going to start by building up my lid first, just so I can get that super saturated and then add color onto that. So I'm going to take the shader brush and I am going to do this damp. I apply almost all of my shimmers damp unless I'm like going for like a super soft look. And I do think that this formula is really going to do best when you use it with a damp brush. You could also use like a glitter glue or something like that. It's not that often that I use a glitter glue. Like if I do, it's because I'm gonna have like a crazy long day, or it's something where it actually has like little particles that I wanna make sure that stay there and not here. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of Fix Plus on that brush once I've got that shadow on it. And we're just gonna kind of pack this on. Not kinda, like that's one of those words that it's like, are you packing it on or are you kind of packing it on? You're packing it on. Ooh, yeah, okay. That looks great. Yeah, these shadows are going to do so well with a wet brush. So even though this is a bit bigger than I usually like, it's slim enough that I can get some decent accuracy as I come in here. And I am truly just like patting this on. And that not only serves the purpose of getting as much color as possible, but it's going to help me avoid fallout, because the minute I start like moving these bristles back and forth, that's when product starts to kick up. So I would say that this finish is definitely more of like a more satiny shimmer. It's not like a high foiled shimmer. The one thing about that though is if you like a shimmer that is not only going to be very like textured eyelid friendly, but something that is super thin and lays down really like smoothly, then this is going to be the formula for you. Some of those like very thick like metallic foiled shades, they can emphasize creasing in the lids, like, you know, the little wrinkles and folds, and they just don't look as smooth. And so if that's a concern for you, you're gonna really love these. I actually think we are or are going to be seeing a trend of going back to more like classic formulas like this, because the people that are still wearing, you know, a decent bit of eyeshadow, and I mean like the people that are like over 25, you know, like all the young kiddos, they're not really rocking a lot of eyeshadow, are starting to have more textured lids. You know, they're wanting something that's a little bit more flattering, but, you know, can still be really fun, right? Like we've got some bold colors in here, but I think that a texture like this is just more flattering and honestly more effortless. And so I see a trend of going away from the really incredibly like super sparkly, crazy metallic formulas into something that you can just put on with ease and, you know, not have to worry about it. So once I have this product laid down, I like to take the other side of the brush, and especially since this side is probably a bit more dry, and just soften out that edge, because I don't want like a cut crease situation going on here. So I just want to like soften that edge. It'll also get softened out when we blend our next color in. And I do think that patting this on is going to be the best for this formula, because I find that like if I start swiping it, it can swipe away a bit of that like thin texture. All right, I'm going to take the crease brush into that Zinfandel shade, and I'm just working it onto like the tip of the bristles. And I'm going to lay this mostly, I think, on this outer maybe 2/3 or so. Now, where this meets, although this Zinfandel is more of like a purpley red, but since I've got red and green together, where those two meet together, it's going to get a bit more murky because we're essentially like using complementary colors. And so it's going to, I run the risk of it getting kind of like browned out. So I want it blended, but I'm not going to do too much. But also, if you want like a really soft blend, having those complementary colors where they meet, it's going to neutralize a little bit and it'll make it, you know, really nice and soft. So it could be a pro or a con depending on what you're looking for. All right, I take back everything I said about this shade possibly going on patchy. It's going on gorgeous. It's just my paranoia, I guess. So these brushes are feeling really soft on the eye, like smooth, buttery. I really like these so far. All right, my shape got a little lower on this side. I'll probably end up correcting that in just a minute. I always tell you guys, I tend to always do that. So I'm just gonna wipe this brush off on a microfiber towel, and then I'm gonna dip into that peachy shade, and then I'm just gonna put this in the inner third of the crease and blend that into that Zinfandel shade. I might have to go over the top again with the Fey shade if I feel like I kind of went over that green a little. And if you are new here and you're like, why are you doing your lid and then your crease and everything? I did just talk about this recently in a video where I've really been enjoying going back to building my eye looks this way again, because I can build the shape as I go and I don't end up like layering so much shadow on top of each other. A transition shade, and then I'm like putting the lid shade over that, and then I've got like another shade that I put on, and all of a sudden I've got like so much powder on my eyes. So to me, it just lends itself to building the shape, but also having a less textured look on my eyes. So I'm just looking straight forward into my mirror here and, you know, kind of like blending with a relaxed eye to get that shape. So I'm gonna now, before I go on to just kind of blending this outer corner, I am just gonna take a bit of that green shade, because I did, I colored outside of the lines right here, and I wanna build that green back up. That is one of the things, if you do your lid shade first, you sometimes have to go back in and just build it back up, but to me, it's worth it. And I did get a little bit of, and not in a bad way, but a bit of that like murk right where those shades meet. I'm cool with it because I just think it like, it's colorful, but it's not like, you know, paint by number. It just kind of smudges it all together. All right, just to use this one, I'm going to take that basic shade on the tip of this brush, and I'm just going to use it to blur out the edge of that Zinfandel shade. Oh, I have to say, like, I mean, I'm using a very delicate hand here, but these bristles really do glide over the skin. So even though this is a more, you know, densely packed brush, it isn't moving the skin too much. I mean, if I really go at it and I put my pressure into it, then it's going to be a different story. But if you go in with a light hand, you can really get like a nice soft blur. Okay, I think because we have so much color on the upper part of the eye, I'm going to neutralize that and use that deep cold brew shade on my lower lash line. I might decide to like blur it out with another shade, but I'm going to start with this and we'll see how that goes. So I'm just using that small detail brush through here. Oh, by the way, yesterday I used a teal waterline liner. That would actually go really cute today too, but it definitely stained my lash line a little bit. So if you see any of that, that's what that's from. I'm going to take the small blender and I am going to take a bit of that peachy shade. That's the one we used in here. I'm just going to blur out the very edge here. You're probably not even going to see the peachy color. It's just going to soften that cold brew shade a bit right along the edge. Sorry, I feel like when I'm doing my lash line, I get like so close. So I'm sorry if you haven't been able to see that at all. And then every once in a while, I always take a step back and like, sometimes we get so into the detail that it's like we don't see the bigger picture. And so every once in a while, I do like to just kind of like take a peek, see what it's looking like. I do feel like that side got a little bit lower, but rather than have to go through with like my cellar water to clean it up, I'm just gonna bring this one. It's just like, I think I'm like tired, you know, it's the morning and I just hold this hand lower. Happens every time. So this side always ends up perky and lifted. I also have a better cheekbone on this side, so this is just always my favorite side. Anyway, all right, I really like this. I think I'm gonna just use Champagne Problems on the inner corner. Yeah, so, oh, I probably should have tried to do that with the small detail brush before I put that dark shade on. But you know what? I think I'm actually just going to clean off, and I'm just using a dry microfiber towel, by the way, to clean off this small detailer. I'm going to use that. I'm just going to dip the brush into that Champagne Problems, and should I do it wet? I'm going to do it just like lightly misted, just so that those little microflecks don't end up all over, and I'm just going to stamp this in. I could even have gone through with like that Bare shade to go through and brighten up the inner corner before I popped this over the top. And oh, I kind of wish that I hadn't done it wet because it's almost like too foiled. That's okay. I should be able to like buff it out a little bit and get rid of some of that like wet metallic. I don't want it to be so molten that it looks like I laid down paint and then like put on my eyeshadow, but I'm gonna let this dry for a second and then I'll just go through and buff the edges to sort of soften that. I almost did it dry and then I was like, oh no, let's just be brave and do it wet, but now I'm kind of wishing I'd done it dry. Oh, you know what? We didn't use this brush. I'm not that surprised. This type of a brush, I use this for effortless looks. It's so big that like, you know me, I'm a control freak. So Virgo power all the way. But really a brush like this, like I really use these when I'm doing like a to and through eye look. I like all the control of the tiny brushes, but I'm sure that this one's gonna be lovely. I'm sure it's gonna feel so good on the skin. This could actually be a little highlighter brush. Yeah, that would work too. Okay, I'm just going to take this gently and sort of knock off a little bit of that just to soften it out. And I can kind of blur that a little bit. I like the color and I like the finish. It just got a little bit strong from using it wet. Yeah, definitely prefer the look of this dry on the inner corner. I think if you use this as a topper shade over a matte on your eyelid, beautiful. Like, oh, I mean, honestly, even like talk about a to and through look, buffing any of these like light neutrals on and then putting that shade over the top wet and just like effortless sparkle fairy vibes. I think that would be great. What also would be great is some mascara. So I'm gonna go put on lots and lots of mascara. I think it goes well with like a smokier look like this, and I'll be right back. All right, curiosity got me, and since these performed so well, I wanted to try out that Hollywood shade Wet. So I did put it on the shader brush and did it wet, and this is what that looks like. So, I mean, that's a beautiful duochrome. So I think that these shadows are just going to do best wet if you're using the shimmers. I'm actually really excited to try that purple now too. I just think that I do think it's going to be a bit softer finish like this one. It's not as duochromy, but I'm definitely excited to play with this palette more. And now that I know that this is what this has the potential to look like, that's going to be cute. So this is why, you know, swatches don't always tell you what it's going to perform like, right? So now that mascara. All right, y'all, I think that after having mascara, we got to put a little bit of a lip on. I'm just going to use the Renew lip oil from Sigma. This is Tranquil. Yeah, I love these. I'm telling you, if you decide to pick up any of these other products and you haven't tried any of the lip oils, if any of them are in stock, I find that they're out of stock quite a bit, but get them. I love this so much. Definitely more of like a hybrid lip oil lip gloss formula, but I just love this. That's a total side note, but I was like, I got to put this shade on. All right, so here is the final look. I love this. There really was not a disappointing shade in all of this. We do still have to use the highlighter though, so I am gonna take this bright shade here and we're gonna pop a little highlight on. You know me, it's not that often that I'm using a highlight, and definitely not a powder highlight, but we're gonna give it a go with this brush just for the sake of giving it a go. Okay, that's pretty, and that's, I tell you what, as far as like a powder highlight, that's about as much as I kind of want to see on my face. Oh, baby hairs. Let's get out of the way here. Okay. Oh, that's pretty. This, I tell you what, this brush and these bristles, if this is where Sigma is going, I don't know if this is strictly for this collaboration or if this is going to be the bristle that Sigma's going to be using from now on, but this feels incredibly soft. I am really excited. And I have a feeling it is going to be where they're going with everything. By the way, I have not researched that. Maybe I should have before this video. Bad content creator. But I have a feeling that is where they're going with this, because I noticed the one day when I was going on the website for something, like so many brushes were out of stock, and I was like, okay, something is going on here. Like, I know there's a lot with all the things going on in the world, but I was like, maybe they're doing some sort of like a revamp. So I'm wondering if that's where they're going with this. So this is really pretty. I really like this. It did seem to pick up a little bit of my powder blush that I put on. I put on a powder and a cream, but I think that that's just kind of like because I was like buffing it in as I was talking to you, but I'm not mad about that at all. Oh, that's really pretty. If I hadn't put on my lip already, I would do a little cupid's bow. I have like no cupid's bow, so I'm just pretending. All right, lovelies, let's go ahead and I'm gonna zoom out and we can chat a little bit. Okay, hopefully you found that little demo helpful. I have to say, I loved every single shade that I used. Am I surprised? No. I am glad that that one shade that I was a little concerned about, I'm glad that it shows that it's gonna perform when it's wet really well. And like I said, the texture of Sigma shadows is so beautiful. The mattes feel so nice, and the shimmers, because they are thinner, they're just a little bit easier to use. They look flattering on everybody. I really like this. It's not like a molten shimmer. It's a little softer, but I am absolutely okay with that. Everything was yummy, so I hope that you enjoyed it. Now, the brushes. After using them, I have to say that I do think that the value is there in this set. Again, they're not like inexpensive brushes by any mean, but I feel like my Sigma brushes have lasted a really long time. Like I still have some of my like original OG brushes. So if you remember, now this one's dirty because I just used it yesterday, but like, again, I talked about the E36. Like if you remember when they had these rose gold ferrules, it's been a hot minute. So this one still going strong, so many of my brushes. And so if these with the new nano bristle technology, if they last just as long, I think that it's going to be great. And obviously you have the upgrade of the beautiful like rainbow oil slick look. Oh, I did want to say that these do come in a box. So if you wanted to pick this up as a gift for someone, that's a really great way to do so. It's such a cute set. So I do think that the value is here. I also think that if you are going to pick up the brushes, like, and I don't know if that's just like a specific sale right now or what, but the fact that that bundle is like such a good deal. I mean, is this worth that extra? It's worth $40 for sure, but is it worth that extra, like, what would that be? Like 12 bucks? Absolutely. So I will have all of the options linked down below for you so you can check them out. Thank you to Sigma for sending these over. And again, because something is sent in PR, I will give you my honest opinion, which is why I try to use some of the shades that I thought might be questionable. So thank you. I hope that this was helpful. I am going to do some of those brush comparisons now. I'm probably going to stick mostly to other synthetics just so we're kind of comparing apples to apples here. But if there's like a dead ringer shape of a natural hair, I might pull those in. So I'm going to let you guys go now, because if you're not interested in the comparisons, feel free to vacate the premises. But if you are a brush nerd like me, and you want to know if these shapes are similar to what you have, if they're different, then we can get into that right now. Thanks, lovelies. I'll see you really soon. All right, so let's start out with the base brush, the AB1. So this is obviously a domed, fairly firm brush. So I just pulled out a couple others that are similar-ish in like shape, and just to kind of show the one that I wanted to bring out, because I could see, again, using this for a lot of creams. I used the Sydney Grace, and I got this one before they started like putting on them what they are. This is the one that I tend to use with creams a lot, but it is not as tapered, which something like this can work really well for like a highlight or something where you want more compact placement, like a contour. Also, I will say the BK Beauty 108, I tend to use this one a lot for cream bronzer, but you can see it's much bigger than this brush, so you're going to get even more detail out of that if that's something that you're into. This I could absolutely see like being a really great contour brush. Like I said, cream products, cream highlight. For blush, this would probably be something where I'm wanting a little bit more exact placement, because the smaller it is, the more buffing I have to do, and sometimes I can like move things around. But I do see myself using this quite a bit, and obviously it put on that powder highlight really great, so it's not saying that you couldn't do that. And like they said, if you wanted to use this to put on your eye base in like 2 seconds, you could do that as well. All right, moving into the AB2, that is that fluffy blender. So first of all, I just want to show this next to Sigma's E35, because that's a pretty classic shape. They're very similar. Right now the E35 looks like it's bigger, but I wonder if that's just because I've had this one for quite a while and it's just bloomed a little bit more. But I will say, I do feel like these bristles in the new one are even softer. So yeah, they just feel softer. So that is the E35 again from Sigma. Here we have the 201 from BK Beauty. Similar-ish. I feel like the Sigma is a bit more tapered. There is a more tapered brush from BK Beauty, the 212, but it's almost like overly tapered compared to the Sigma one. So kind of like a mix in between these two, I would say, is probably where you're at. The Sigma feels softer. But again, I've had these BK Beauty ones for a while. So the other one that I wanted to pull out is the E14 from Lara Fay. You know that I love their brushes as well. It's a UK-based brand and similar, but the Lara Fay is more densely packed. The Sigma is a bit fluffier, so it just kind of depends on preference there. All right, I'd mentioned that this sort of paddle-shaped crease brush is not something that I tend to go to a lot, and I can see that in my collection because I don't really have a lot of brushes that are that way. The only ways that I have them is if like it came in a set. For instance, and neither of these are synthetic hairs. They're both like natural, but this way you can kind of see. I have the Refer Mini 01. It is a bit smaller, so I would have a feeling that the regular one would be very similar. I got this in the mini set, so similar shapes. And then I also have the Sonia G Worker Pro. We have very similar. Sonia G is just a little bit smaller, but very similar shapes. So this is a very traditional brush shape. It's just not one that I've gone out of my way to purchase a lot, but this one came in clutch today. I actually really like this, so I might have to give that a go more in the future. All right, I took a little field trip because I have some brushes that I just recently washed that are drying in the other room, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm missing something, because I just feel like, oh, I'm surprised that I don't have many like similar shapes. So I wanted to pull out some options to liken to the AB4, the shader brush. And actually it's really interesting. I know I just talked about that 01, but from Refer, so the 01 Mini, you've got some similarities here. Like obviously this one's just a little bit bigger, but for that, like that almost like paddle shaped shader, I don't really have anything. It's like everything's either a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, and certainly None of my synthetics are similarly shaped. Not really. So I think that the Refer, see, even like the 28 is not the same. So it's similar-ish, but shorter, which is honestly usually what I prefer, is a little bit shorter for a bit more accuracy, but this did great. A couple other brands, sort of like shader brushes. This definitely has more accuracy, like the 203 from BK Beauty. This one's so much bigger. The only time I use this is again for like a quick one and done look, or maybe like a cream shadow. But even with that, when I get in here, I don't have quite as much accuracy. So this would be a better shape for that. I feel the same about this A501. Angie's, like, this is just such a ginormo lid. It's such a ginormo lid shader. And then, yeah, I mean, really, all these other brushes they're just kind of off as far as like the shape of them would be for something like this. So this is a more unique one for me. And like I said, while it's not the one that I would normally go towards, it really performed really well today. One of the brush shapes that I do really enjoy and that I have some similar options is the AB5, the small blender. So this is that like little domed fan brush, and I would say the most similarly shaped is maybe the Angie Hot and Flashy A504. I use this brush a lot for like detailing. It's actually a little bit smaller, but they are about the same amount of like density, and then this one is a bit more tapered. Another similar size, but not quite as small, is the Divina D104. You can see that there. These are just similar-ish, not like dead ringers. And then the Larife E12, again, a little bit bigger, but this is definitely like tinier. Okay, I'm irritated with myself because I know that BK Beauty has a small detailer. At any rate, it's not quite as small as this one. The one that is actually possibly even a bit smaller is the Divina 101. So if you can see those here, it is shorter. The other option I wanted to show just for sizing, again, this is a natural hair again, is the Refer 03. So the Sigma one is much smaller. I am trying to see in here what else I have. If you have the Katie Jane Hughes and Spectrum set, this one is similar. It's just not as finely pointed. Thank you for sticking through this little brush comparison with me. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to see compared to things that you may already own or have thought about purchasing. Again, I think that this brush set, after using it, it's so soft. They're super cute. I think it would be a great gift for someone if you have a makeup lover in your life. It would be a great gift for yourself as well. Oh, I also wanted to say, if you want to see another look using this palette, I probably should have said that before, but if you do want to see another look using this palette, let me know. Maybe I can film a short soon, so in case you wanted to see any of those other shades in action. And again, I will have all of these linked down below. You can use my code KEEPBEAUTYREAL to save if you do decide to pick any of these things up. Thank you for supporting me if you do, but zero pressure as always. I'll see you really soon.